Hello and welcome to my second lockdown lunch. I realised I was looking a bit scruffy and a bit of a tramp yesterday, so I've made a bit more of an effort today. So today we're going to be looking at how to make a ragu or bolognese sauce, if you like. So I am using bits that the core bit, which is the beef mince I've got, that's fine. But then I discovered what I normally do is I use salami as well as that, but I don't have any salami. But what I do have is a piece of chorizo, which I'm going to chop up. I also found some diced chorizo in the freezer, so I'm going to use that. And I have got a couple of slices of streaky bacon, so I might crisp that up and put that in as well. I also found out that I only had a couple of onions, one red, one white. Which isn't quite enough, I don't think. But I did have a leek left over from yesterday. So what I might do is, we'll see how the onions go, but if the onions don't stretch far enough, then I'm going to put the leek in. And the other vital ingredient is tomatoes. Apparently these are like gold dust, so ha ha ha. But if you want to make a proper ragu, you need to use passata. But for normally, I mean, it's absolutely fine if you just used an ordinary tin of chopped tomatoes. Okay, so those are the ingredients. Then you need a bit of seasoning, salt and pepper. Oh, sorry, I should have mentioned. Garlic. Now, you can mash up garlic and do it really nicely, or you can buy garlic puree, which I've actually used. It's fine. And you can also use Italian tomato puree as well, which is nice. I don't know whether you'll be able to get any Italian food of any kind whatsoever for the foreseeable future, but certainly olive oil is going to be a bit tricky. Anyway, so that. And the most important thing now, for most Italian dishes have a bit of oregano in them. This has the whole thing of this in it. It just gives it that really nice Italian flavour. I heard somebody's child calls this pizza. The pizza herb? But actually, there's so much oregano in lots and lots of different things. In fact, I'm showing you this one because I do quite a lot of Italian cooking. I actually have like jacket loads of it, so it is quite handy to have. Right. So let's get cracking and start to cook. I mean, it's a pretty basic, simple ragu, this one. What we're going to do is we're going to cook the mince, cook the bacon, cook the chorizo, and then we are going to mash it up together. The trick with cooking mince is use a wooden spoon, a big saucepan, and a lot of effort. And you'll see why we're going to do that in a minute. Anyway, I suppose I should start to chop it all up, since most people like to see whether I'm going to slice a finger off. Let's get cracking with a knife. So let's start off with the onions. Chopping onions, actually, there is a skill to this as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dice them quite small. So what I want to do is to leave the root end on. So if you leave the root, you'll see why in a minute. So basically, first of all, do the peeling, because it's actually easy to peel the pointy bit. And you can just pull that off. And pop those in the recycling. So if you do that, then you can just chop off the nib at the end there. Yeah, there we go. And if you want to chop it up into small chunks, what I do is cut it all the way through, but not quite to the root. So just about leave a little bit and just chop into the onion, just so that you're leaving it all attached. So theoretically, at this point, even though I've chopped it up, I can still lift the whole thing up, and it's all intact. What that means is that when I go across it, it all falls to pieces into nicely chopped bits, and I don't have to worry about things sliding everywhere or slicing everywhere. I can just basically go through it, and it's really, really easy to dice an onion this way. I don't know if you've ever seen that before. If you haven't, you've learned something. If you have, that was teaching you to suck eggs. Okay, so we'll just do the other one as well, the other half. There are various people say there are ways to stop you from crying or your eyes watering when you're chopping onions. One of the ways I've heard is to bite on a match, because that's like screws your eyes up a bit. I'm not sure I believe that one especially, but why not give it a go? The other thing is don't use quite such strong onions. I'm just going to put those in the bowl, ready to go into the pan. Yeah, so don't use quite such strong onions. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. You can chop to your heart's content, and if you cry, you cry. You know, we're made to cry. It's fine. Man was made to suffer. No, but onions are naturally good at making you cry. If you're an actor, they work brilliantly if you want to pretend that you're crying, I guess. I know some actors use them. So with the red onion, by the way, you've got the nice soft bit of red onion, but on the very outside you've got this really rock hard bit of shell. So we're going to put those in for the recycling. And then we'll do exactly the same thing on the red one that we did on the white one. So chop off the nib, put that in the recycling, and then go through it, but not quite to the root. Same again. You can make these closer or further apart if you want, depending on how much you want the onion to be finely sliced. When you get, sorry, I should have mentioned, when you get to the end bit, don't try and cut your fingers off. Just turn the edge of it over. So I'll do it more slowly on this one. So you cut through, starting to get towards the end now. It's still holding together nicely, but you've got like a very shallow, very narrow bit of onion there. Just turn it that way, just slice that way. You'll still get nice thin bits off it, but it's just less risk to your digits. Okay, so I'm just having a look at how much onion I've actually got now, and I might have enough, you know. I don't think I'm going to have to use that leek. That's kind of the onion that I've got. I think that'll do, because this mince will reduce down quite considerably. I think we're good. Right, so stage 2, start to cook. Okay, that's the saucepan's heating up nicely. I'm now going to move it to the front one. That way. And start working at it with a wooden spoon. I mean, I don't know whether you've ever had this, but if you have mince, and it can go a bit clumpy, and when it's clumpy, it's bloody horrible. It just tastes like school mince when it goes like that. It's really not fun. But the secret of making it not clumpy is to really go at it with a wooden spoon, because then all the clumps come out. This bit there escaped down. So just keep chopping at it with a wooden spoon, keep moving it about. Do you know what I wish? Note to Bosch here. It would be what we've got on this hob is the two front ones are a very small one and a very powerful one, and the two back ones are kind of like the medium ones that you use the most. Now I don't know whether there's any logic to having the ones you use the most in the least accessible position, because if it was me, I would put the two back ones at the front and the two front ones at the back. But I'm not Bosch, and I have no idea why they do that. Anyway, this is not going as fast as I would like, or you would like, frankly, because you're probably bored with listening to the sound of my voice and hearing me talk about stirring mince. But there you go. I'll tell you what we could do just to make it a bit more interesting. Let's chuck a whole tub full of oregano in there. Why not? Seasoning whilst things are cooking is actually a much better time to do it. Oh, there we go. It's a much better time to do it than afterwards, because it gets into the soul of the food that you're cooking. So it's really actually at the base of it, and it just makes it. It just becomes part of the dish rather than an addition. I guess is the best way of describing it. So what I'm going to do is all of that oregano is now mixed in nicely with the mince. And if you can see that, yes, you probably can. Jolly good. And you can also see that the mince isn't being too clumpy. If you do the work at this stage, you don't have to do the work later on. So we'll do a bit of seasoning. Quite a bit. I've been told by my cousin Leslie, hello Leslie, that I use too much salt in food, and she's probably right. I should use less salt, but I like salt. Sorry Leslie. If you actually, it is a truism of great restaurants, is that the way they make their food tastes so much better than your normal restaurant is they do use a lot more salt than you'd expect them to. That's coming along nicely. I think we'll just finish cooking that off, then we'll cook everything independently and separately. Otherwise it's going to get a bit messy. In the meantime, while this is cooking, I'm going to chop up that chorizo into very small bits, that hopefully about as small as the grains that this is turning into. Okay, and this is the chorizo. That's that little bit, all chopped up into quite fine bits. So those are going in now. I have to say, even though this is 5% fat, it's not especially making a lot of fat in here. So I may have to, I might have to cook the onions with the olive oil. That's fine. I'm wondering whether I should put a bit more chorizo in. Sod it, why not? Okay, this is the diced one that I found. I've just chopped up a bit more. I'm just going to put about half of that in, because I think that would overpower it. I think if I put all of that in. You can see there that the mince is moving around. Can you see that? Yes, you can. The mince is moving around nicely, and it's nice and granular. So we'll leave that continuing to cook. And in the meantime, I'm going to quickly, or slowly, do you know what? I think I've got enough in there. I'm going to leave the bacon. You could put bacon in there. Shall I? Yeah, go on, I can hear you saying yes. I'm going to put the bacon in there. Okay, and this is it's actually smoked streaky bacon. So there's probably a bit more than I would want, but doesn't hurt. Stick it in there. Start to cook that as well. Now the reason I'm cooking these starting at different times is that they need different amounts of cooking time. So the mince needs to be cooked quite well. The bacon doesn't need to be cooked quite so well because it's smoked. So it's actually semi-cooked to start with, if you like. And the chorizo or salami, which I would normally use, is cooked anyway. It's ready to eat. So it's just a question of just making sure that everything is cooking, and it's going to be ready for me to add the tomatoes at the right time. So I'm just going to leave that to stew for a bit, and I'll put something up about how I don't actually. I suppose I could put quantities up. I'd never really thought about quantities. No, I have no idea of quantities. Make it up, guys. Make it up. But while that's cooking, I'm going to use the same pan. Save washing up. My cleaner came today, so I don't want to make the place too grubby. Let's reserve that into a bowl. I might as well use nice things since you're watching. See that one? Yes. There we go. So we have got. I mean, the pan is a little bit oily, but it's not as oily as I would really like to cook the onions in. So I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. Well, I say a little bit, about that much. Let's get that going. I've left all the residue of the oregano and the fat from the mince and all the flavour in there, so that the onions will pick that up and bring it with them when everything's mixed together. The reason that I do these separately is because cooking onions so they're sweet enough is quite tricky. And if you do them separately, then you know when they're exactly at the point where they're going to be at their tastiest when you cook them. So I just do these separately, and then I know that they're going to be scrumptious. Right, I'm going to leave those to cook for a bit, back in a bit. Okay, that's been about 10 minutes on a fairly low light. You can see that what's happening to the onions is they're starting to go translucent. And they're starting to smell really nice, like onions should. They've got that nice sweetness going in there. I reckon that's about. I'm pushing it a bit because of the video, you know, but realistically, I would probably give it another couple of minutes. I'm going to do that because I've got to eat this after all. Okay, well, I think the onions are pretty much at the point where I'm happy with them. I don't know if you're happy with them, but I am. I think they're looking really nice and they're just sliding around nicely. They've absorbed some of the olive oil, or a lot of the olive oil, so they're going to taste absolutely delicious. So let's pop the mince back in. I don't know why I did that away from me. I should have done it that way really. It would have looked a lot more impressive. Any road up. And then just going to mix in the mash, mix in the mince and the onions together so that they're all talking to each other, which is always good to do. And then I'm going to add, now I can't decide whether to put the passata in, which I've never done before, but I've never done chorizo in before. So let's make it a day of two first. So let's put the passata in. Why not? Let's go crazy. And the only thing about Tetra Packs, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be safe. I'm using scissors. God knows what could happen otherwise. There we go. Okay. Passata, in you go. Oh, there was another ingredient I forgot as well. Damn. But you can guess what that is, I think. You might guess. Why not? Don't know. Because then I use the other ingredient to go in there and get the rest of the tomatoes out. It's wine. I've got this bottle open, so I don't need much. It's just enough to kind of rinse out the tin or the carton. That'll probably do. And then just shut that up. Give it a bit of a shake. Let's get the last of the passata out. There we go. Nice bit of white wine in there as well. Okay, so that's that. Just mix that in nicely. At this point, I'm going to put in the garlic and the tomato puree. You can see it's quite runny, quite liquid. That's because it's going to take bloody ages to turn into a ragu, and ragus just take a long time. I'm sorry, that's what happens. I did actually have some really nice. Oh, it is. I thought I did. So I've actually got some garlic farm from Isle of Wight. Hey! Tomato puree, garlic puree. So I'm going to use that instead of the Gia Italian one. Why not? This is from the Isle of Man. I've actually been to the garlic farm where the stuff's made. Had a great time there with a load of mates. It was nice. But it doesn't seem to be the downside is it doesn't seem to be breaking very well. I wonder if that one would actually break it better. Let's see. No, that's not breaking it either. Do you know what? I'm going to use the scissors. Do not do this at home. It is actually open, but maybe the garlic inside is. There we go. It's proper wedgy garlic, that one. Yeah, it's quite thick. I mean, you can see it's proper. It's just like it's like you'd mash it at home. It's nice. And then I suppose that was about a tablespoonful. And then the tomato puree. I'm going to put about that much in. Mix all that up together. I've noticed, by the way, on the bowl where the meat was, there's this nice sort of chorizo orangey oil. What that's going to mean is that this, when it's cooked, is going to come out with a really nice orangey glow to it, I hope. And certainly when it's coating the pasta, we'll come back to whether you need pasta for this at all, whether you can use something else, given that the supermarkets don't have any pasta in them at the moment. And we'll see what we can do. But anyway, so this is going to be incredibly dull. So for about an hour, that's just going to reduce. So we'll see you in an hour. It does tend to spit quite a lot, this. So if you value the cleanliness of your hob, put a lid on, at least just slightly open, so that it can reduce, so the steam can escape, but so that the splashes of yummy tomatoiness don't coat the rest of your kitchen. So here we are, we're about half an hour in, and it's starting. Actually, I think we're probably close to being done now. It's reduced nicely. It's got that nice sauce feel to it. Maybe another 5 minutes or so, but not much more, and that'll be ready. Actually, it's ready for a taste, I think. Oh. Oh. Well, it tastes different to the ragu I normally make because of the addition of the chorizo, which gives it a kind of like a sweeter flavour. So it's not your average ragu. This is Bruce's lockdown ragu with chorizo. There you go. There's a name for it even. I think that can be turned off now, and we'll just leave that open to the fresh air for the steam to vanish. And I think by the time that's settled down and cooled off, that's going to be about the right consistency. Okay, and there we go. That's now, you can see it's as I predicted. It's come down to that nice saucy look. What I'm going to do now is leave it to cool, because this is a batch cook, and then we're going to bag it up and put it in the freezer once it's cold. And that's it. We've batch cooked a ragu. So the next stage is to take that batch and put it into bags, which is pretty straightforward. I use Sainsbury's tie handle. I like the tie handle ones. I don't know why, but I prefer them to the ones that you have to kind of like seal. But anyway, let's have a look down at the ragu. Okay, so I guess step one is to write down on the bag what's inside. I'm calling it Ragu Plus because that will hopefully remind me that it's got chorizo in it. And since I'm on my own at home, I'm going to make these into bags just for one. So probably, I don't know how much ragu, probably a little bit more than that. Would you like to know how much that weighs? I'll tell you how much that weighs. I know I'm not very good at weights and measures. In fact, I'm really rubbish at it, especially when it comes to cooking. So where are we there? We're on grams. We are on grams, and we weigh about 180 grams, which is in old money about 6 ounces. There we go. I mean, if you wanted to divide this up, perfectly, you could use the scales to make each one exactly the same weight as the previous one. But I'm going on what I guess I could eat, which is quite a lot. But I was saying before, you don't have to put this on spaghetti, and I'll tell you what else you can put it on. It is brilliant on baked potatoes. Really lovely. And if you've ever been told that it's difficult and time consuming to make baked potatoes, I could tell you a very neat little shortcut. So what you need to make baked potatoes is a microwave and a steel pin. Not at the same time. Definitely not at the same time. So what you do is you microwave the potato for about 10 minutes. And then you take it out of the microwave, so it's sort of cooked on the inside, but not on the outside quite so much. But then you stick a steel skewer through the middle of it, and you stick it in the oven. And what the steel skewer does is it conducts the heat through the potato, so it still continues to cook it, and you're cooking the inside and the outside simultaneously. If you don't want to use the microwave bit, that's fine, but it just takes a bit longer. So there we go. That's the last one's a bit small. I might have that one tonight with a baked potato, or even, because I have it, some pasta. And there we go. That's my knocked up lockdown ragu with chorizo. I hope you enjoyed watching that, and I'll hopefully be cooking you another lockdown lunch tomorrow, and hopefully looking even smarter. Sorry about yesterday. Thank you. Bye bye now.